I know God breathe on this.
The new brand for upcoming creators, the Facebook for creators.
A community of creatives.
That's what collective is to me, is kind of giving creatives a voice.
What's up, everybody? It is Kelsey Davis here, founder and CEO of Collective and host of the Every Human podcast. And today I'm going to be talking with the managing director of Tulsa Remote, Justin Harlan, who's also the creator of the fitness studio Row House. So let's get into it.
Glad to be here.
How are you?
Man, this is fun.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So getting into it, we're at 36 degrees north right now, which is really a key heart resource really when it comes to the startup ecosystem. And, when I think about everything that Tulsa's really, doing, before I got here, obviously over the past 100 years, I think for the next 100 years is really this focus on that intersection between community development, economic development. How are we building Tulsa to a place where people can thrive, where babies are born and actually have access to mobility and opportunity, and don't really have to leave the city of Tulsa in order to get access to the resources that they need. You're somebody that's embodies all of that in a lot of different ways. So super excited to talk to you today. So for those who don't know, who is Justin Harlan?
Coming out of the gate with a big question.
Yeah. Who are you?
Man, so at a very high level, I hope that I'm a good dad and a good husband and a good friend. I hope that I'm an empathetic leader that values people over process. I hope that I'm giving my time and energy and money to creating a Tulsa that's better for my kids than it is for me. At the core of who I am, I hope those are the things that ring true, and what I do in my job is I run a program called Tulsa Remote that you were a part of.
Yeah.
And we recruit people to move to Tulsa for $10,000. If you got a remote job, you commit a year here. And through that year, we hope to integrate you into the Tulsa community and help you build community and really find a new home in Tulsa.
Yeah, and when I hear all that, two things come to mind. Like, why Tulsa for you? Why Tulsa in terms of the location that you've kind of chosen to do this type of work? And why community? Like, why is community the thing that is important to you and that you put your energy around?
Yeah, well, Tulsa, I originally moved to Tulsa to go to school. So I went to the University of Tulsa, and that's originally what brought me down here from Kansas City. I stayed because I met an amazing human being that I'm now married to, but also because I think there's something super unique about what's going on here right now. I mean, there just feels like there's a lot of momentum, and there's this interesting moment of over the last, let's call it 5 to 10 years of incredible growth in terms of quality of life, where we have things like the Gathering Place, the BOK Center, 36 degrees north, the Arts District downtown. Like, none of these things were here when I was in college. There was really no reason to come downtown. And then you also have this reckoning of acknowledging our terrible past and the worst thing that's happened in this city. And also igniting hope for what's to come and inviting people to be a part of that. And that to me is incredibly exciting. To the second half of your question, why am I doing this work? I spent the majority of my career in education, nonprofit leadership, and have always had a community component of work within education. So with Teach for America, it was bringing people to Tulsa. They commit 2 years to teaching, and you're trying to build community and keep them around, right? At Reading Partners, you're leaning on volunteers to really do the work that you're doing every single day in schools. Yeah. And I think there's something beautiful about continuing that community work at Tulsa Remote, where it's less about the job that somebody is doing and more about how do we help them enjoy life and find a cool place to do their work and foster those connections that are meaningful, that'll help them really be fruitful outside of the workplace.
Yeah. And do you see Row House, right? The fitness studio you've created, do you see that almost as like a same thing, but almost like a environment where people can come, obviously work out, but community is like at the heart of that as well?
Yeah. I mean, we all as human beings yearn for those connections. Like, no matter where you are or who you are, like, you're hungry for that social connection, for other people to lean into, for somebody to just get you and understand you. And I think whether it's a place like 36 Degrees North or a cool social event that you're attending in town or a fitness studio. Like everybody needs those connections to lean on. And I do think that's a real through line that pops up in really everything I've chosen to invest in, whether that's financially or time. And I think that matters a lot to me and certainly matters a lot to Megan too.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about Tulsa Remote. I obviously am a Tulsa Remote member, now alumni, which I'm proud of. I've hit my post
Recently,
1 year.
right?
Yeah. My post 1 year mark, and I know for me, when I first came out to Tulsa, I was here on a business trip. And I was literally like sitting in my hotel. I was like, let me go for a run. Because going for a run in a new city is a really good way for me to just get the energy of the city, like just to kind of feel the people, touch the ground, like hear what people are talking about when you kind of, walk by. And there were 3 different moments like on that run, like, I don't know, like my body just like needed to stop. And like, I felt this like weird overwhelmingness of like energy. And I was just like, man, like, I don't know if it's the air. Maybe you guys have great air. I don't
pollen.
know. Yeah. Right, exactly. That's probably what it was. That's probably why I had to actually stop. But yeah, man. And the more that I started talking to people and going to different sides of the city and talk to a lot of different parts of the community, I realized, man, whether people are, born and raised in Tulsa, people, originally and they just stayed the whole time. Maybe they were born here, then they left and they came back. Or people like us who, aren't born and raised in Tulsa, but kind of saw what was happening and was like, hey, man, I want to actually get a part of that. I've never really felt that way about a city in terms of like, I may want to associate myself with like a community because, for example, I'm a tech founder, so maybe I joined an accelerator program because, it's giving me kind of what I want in the context of what I need for my business, or I'm choosing to go to this university because I want to study X, Y, and Z. It has the program for me specifically. I'm not particularly choosing the school because of the city, maybe as much as like what that program or what that university has to offer. Tulsa's been the first experience for me though, where the city was kind of the top of funnel thing that I was like really primarily attracted to, and kind of found all of these different worlds. Like it was almost like a Disney World in the sense of like, okay, you have Epcot, you have, this over here. You can kind of almost like choose your world, choose your adventure of where you want to plug in. And for me, being someone that kind of builds community everywhere that I go, I felt like that was the energy that I got in Tulsa. Like no matter where you go, people are building. Right? Whether that's community, family, businesses. And so for someone like me, and I think for somebody like a lot of people in Tulsa Remote, they're people that they're interested in expanding in terms of like, hey, there's some level of value that wherever I am in the country, maybe I have access to this physical good or have access to a certain level of nightlife or whatever. But there's something that I think people are still longing for. Humans, like society in general, we're longing for that's deeper than just like, oh, I like my job, or it's like, how can the environment that I'm in actually feed me back, and how could I feed that environment? And I think that's where you call home. Right. So I know for me, Tulsa's been able to be that. What are some things that, even from people that are in Tulsa Remote, you've heard is like the main reasons as to why like Tulsa is a considerable destination? I know for you it was community, it was love. What are some of kind of the things that you hear about why someone would want to choose Tulsa? The $10,000 is cool, obviously, I'm sure, but I don't think that that's something that economically is life-changing really, right, to be a main catalyst is why you would move somewhere. So what is it that's beyond that?
Yeah, when we started this program, the $10,000 was really the headline and I think was the big story, but it's become much bigger than that. And I think the reason that people come now is much more than just the cash. For me, the biggest things we hear are the pandemic, I think, really opened up people's eyes to the fact that if I don't have to be in a place to do my job, why am I paying an arm and a leg to live in this 500 square foot apartment when there's a much higher quality of life somewhere else where I can still do the same job and have a backyard for my dog or a third car garage or whatever else people dream of, or even buy my own home, and there's something beautiful about, a place that has a really high quality of life, in entertainment options, 7 James Beard Award nominations this year, outdoor amenities like the Gathering Place, while also providing that low cost of living. And I think that's what I hope that Tulsa continues to maintain. How do we maintain a really high quality of life without raising the cost of living for all Tulsans? And that is the sweet spot. That's where we can be the next Austin without also having the Austin cost.
I guess
what
are those reference points, right? Because I think it's great that you brought this up. It's like I obviously have this huge desire for Tulsa to grow as a city. I bought a house literally in Greenwood. For me, as a 26-year-old, like my parents, especially Gen Z, like we're not really thinking about buying homes just based on like our kind of millennial brothers and sisters kind of told us to wash away those dreams, right? Like that's not something Social Security, all that. Like it's we're kind of thinking about other places to kind of invest our money and just because the cost of living, right?
Sure.
How do you make sure, right? Or like what are the hypotheses around? Okay, we know that we want to bring people in. How do we make sure that we're still developing the local community here? How do we make sure that we're creating space for everyone? We have all the space in the world in Oklahoma, but I guess programmatically, environmentally, how do you think about all those words colliding and making sure that we're serving the greater Tulsa so that as things are growing, it's still affordable and people can still live here?
Yeah, it's an incredibly complicated conundrum to solve, as you know, and I also recognize and acknowledge that the majority of our systems within this country, and Tulsa is not immune to that, are broken, and people living them are within them are doing so in an incredibly inequitable way.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting problem to figure out, is like, how do you bring people in and make a place attractive while also raising the floor for everybody that's already here? Yeah. And my personal belief, and I think what we see ringing true, is there's a lot on the housing supply side that is not Tulsa Remote's responsibility, but it's certainly a conversation that we are actively engaged in, where as we recruit people to come, and just generally, Tulsa has been growing for the last 20 years. Consistently, we've grown by about 100,000 people over the last 20 years. This is not something that Tulsa Remote started. This is a cool place to be. Like, this is where people want to be, and when there's energy somewhere, people are going to be attracted to it. And so as people are attracted to this place, how do we maintain a housing supply that people can be a part of and not, increase the demand, therefore increasing prices. But also, I think the beauty of working for a program that's funded underneath a big foundation is this is a multi-pronged approach. Like Tulsa Remote is a very, very, very small sliver of the budget. The majority of the work at the foundation level is going on within those broken systems, within the systems that we know are not serving everybody in the way they deserve to be served. And I think there's a lot of power in bringing people in and adding to an economy that's already growing and thriving. And there's something really beautiful about you describing Tulsa the way that you just did, and that message getting out to people and saying, okay, success for me as a Tulsan does not have to mean that I go to a coast. It does not have to mean that I take that tech job in California or that Wall Street job in New York. There is beauty here. There is success here. And seeing people like you and a lot of the other awesome people that have come through Tulsa Remote, I think provides representation for local folks that it's, okay, they're choosing to actually come to this place that I'm trying to get out of. Like, maybe it's not so bad. Like, maybe there's some beauty here,
just like locally, like in the community, people are like all the time, like, why? Yeah, but why'd you choose Tulsa? Like, I've lived in Atlanta, I've lived in New York, I've lived in LA. And I think that it's beautiful what you said too, even about the hope of even what people see who maybe have been born and raised here, but maybe even have given up hope a little bit on what's possible inside. So maybe even naturally, just because of things that have happened to them, their own experiences, being here, it's been like, okay, maybe let's just silo ourselves and just maybe kind of do our own thing in our own environment and kind of, just like silo ourselves. And I think now people are starting to realize, wait, like things are really starting to pop up. Things are really starting to happen. And it's really cool because for me, it's like, I feel like I really get to be a bridge where it's like, I'm living in the community. I'm kind of a part of this greater ecosystem that's happening, but it's like, I'm trying to pull in as many people to be able to participate in the beauty of what's happening in Tulsa, whether you're already living in Tulsa, whether, my family members, like, it's like every quarter I have people in my family that's like, hey, like anybody, can I come stay at your house for 2 weeks? And
Right.
almost see Tulsa as like a family vacation spot now in terms of like, hey man, I just want to get out there. I want to see what's going on. Like, and they're often very surprised of like, wow, like how walkable downtown is. How there's always things that are going on in Tulsa. You could find live music literally every single night, any place in the city. And it's kind of like a breath of fresh air,
Yeah.
right? And I think even the values of what people have, like, Steph Simon, local artist, he says, you shouldn't be in Tulsa if you don't like to build, basically. It's kind of like a paraphrase of his statement, because it's like, and we're still in like an early stage in the sense of, look, if there's certain values that maybe you're looking for, it's like, man, like, I just need to have a professional football team, let's say, in order to live in this city, right? Like, I don't necessarily know if, in terms of the values of what we have, it's like, that's awesome. Fortunately, we have Dallas down the street. We have Kansas City down the street. But if you're really looking for, we say with Collective, every human is a creator. If you're looking for where to go to really plant so that you can get nourished in the way that you need to in order to create, in any breath of the way, I think that Tulsa's been that. We see that even with kind of the rebuilding of Black Wall Street that's happening. You see that with the software technology side of stuff. With you have programs now like Techstars. You have in Tulsa people that are really driving workforce also, right?
Yep.
How is it for you? As Justin, I imagine part of your creative gift is like range, right? Like being able to talk to so many different sides, being able to see so many different sides, but like to show up as a servant, really, and like to just say, hey man, like I'm here to help. I know that things aren't perfect; they're never going to be perfect, but what can we do, right? Like Tulsa Remote does a specific thing. It exists underneath a foundation that can do a lot of other things. We exist within a community that has connections to a lot of other things. So it's like often I almost feel like you're like a I don't know, like just like someone who could really help people navigate. I think Tulsa Remote overall is like a thing that can help people navigate, where it's like, hey, here's like a good top of funnel way. We can get you into Tulsa, but then there's a whole world that you can roam. What's it like for you? I guess, or have you always, since you've been a child, been someone that like occupies different types of spaces and like operates as a bridge for people?
I don't know. That's a really good question. Yeah. I've always found really great joy in helping people maximize their potential, and whether that's on the football team in high school or in my entry level role in my first job or whatever. Like I've always loved connecting, and I've always loved making that one introduction or telling somebody to apply to this job or this program and seeing who they are really tapped into. But I think what you're tapping into here in this question is like a really probably the most challenging part of the Tulsa Remote job, which is like where is it appropriate to be everything to everybody, and where is it best to give the keys to that world that you're describing and let people explore on their own? Because I think that there's the natural tendency, because of who I am and because of the fact that we're moving these people to the city, is to like just do anything in your power to make them happy. It's like, I want you to love this place. Like I want you to call this home. And the reality is, and I've definitely learned this over the 2 years that I've been in this role, Tulsa's not going to be for everybody, to your point earlier. But it's also like, how do you give people the right connection or change your mindset to be more about integration into a city that is already operating at a very high level, and change the mindset from I'm going to be everything for you to I'm going to make some really good connections that I know are meaningful to you because I understand you as a human being.
Accelerate your individual.
Exactly.
Life. Do you think about it's interesting. Do you think about the fitness, like what you do from a fitness standpoint, similar in terms of like you're helping them activate like their maximum potential, right? It's almost like, hey, what are the things that you need individually to actually be able to like stimulate whatever your growth journey is? Like there's not like a one fits all thing to like make everyone healthy or to say, but it's like you can create efficacy. I know as a D1 recruit, like the way that I when I work out, when I am like in flux of just sport, of routine, of pushing my body to a certain limit, and I have the release that I have in that, and I'm sweating, and it's like, man, now I'm hungry, or now I'm eating better, now I'm my brain is maybe a little bit clear, like now I'm on pace, like as physically as a human. Do you ever think about like maybe some of the parallels that even like come from like what it means to help maximize someone's human potential, but doing that like in a community way, maybe through a role like Tulsa Remote, or even economically like that, versus like fitness? Like, how do you see body and the way we show up as like a body as similar at all?
Well, I definitely see physical and mental like well-being as a core component of how we show up. I mean, if you wake up not feeling good or not feeling yourself, like that basically throws off your entire day. Yeah. And so for me, physical fitness certainly plays a role in that. I think the difference in the two models is at Tulsa Remote, I actually see, like, let's take you, for example. You came through Tulsa Remote. If you're still coming to every Tulsa Remote event 2 years from now, like, we didn't do our job.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you're relying on Tulsa Remote to love Tulsa. There's plenty of stuff to do in Tulsa outside of us. So I would actually, which is different than a revenue generating business like a fitness studio, where I'd love to keep giving you reasons to come back.
Yeah.
You know, I want you in our studio as many times as you can, because I know that's serving the service that I'm providing you, that you're paying me for, is serving a purpose, and the value is attached. Exactly.
Versus it's almost like what you're saying. It's like if Tulsa Remote does its job, then you're actually kind of depending on or integrated with the community itself.
That's right.
Rather than kind of needing Tulsa Remote to continue kind of guiding you.
The best success stories for me are the people who have been here 3-4 years, and we don't see them, and people go, where is that person? And it's like, well, are they still in Tulsa? Oh, they're still here? That's great. We did our job. You know?
I love
that's
that.
great.
And how do you see, I know you and Megan, your wife, are in business together, right? So, you know, you have these close relationships with, you know, whether it's like work, business. How do you navigate running a company with your wife and literally, you know, running a company that's sending thousands of people to Tulsa, and inherently kind of operate as, you know, like, you know, Papa Bear to this community of thousands of creators, like making sure that these people that have moved here and risked their life are okay. Also running 2 businesses, you know, have 2 kids. You know, how do you navigate and manage that, but familially for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, from the like husband and wife business partner perspective, it's tough. I mean, there's, you know, I think it's creating some boundaries within the relationship of like, how do we not make our entire relationship revolve around these businesses, and create space for like what made us fall in love with each other to begin with, you know, so that we don't lose that. I do think that's really challenging, because it's easy when I have a full-time day job, especially, to come home and then all she's been thinking about all day is like what she wants to talk to me about when I get home. And it's like, you know, can we wait a little while, or maybe we save that? I'm exhausted. I've been talking to people all day. So I think creating some boundaries, making sure that date nights are not just about business, you know, little things like that you can kind of set up some boundaries there. But, you know, in terms of like the Papa Bear stuff, I don't see myself like that. You know, I'm obviously brought in to do a job, and I try to do the best I can. I try to put people first. I try to lead in the way that's true to myself. I try to love on my team.
And your team is incredible.
Yeah, just incredible human beings that, you know, I try to lift them up and empower them. And I think that good management is not getting your hands in everything, but empowering your people to do their work, and hiring the right people to do that work. So I don't know, like, I don't necessarily see myself as that. I see myself as just showing up as who I am. And I've been put in this job, which is an incredible responsibility, but I've been put in it because somebody believes in me, and I'm going to just keep showing up like me.
And it sounds like you're really like a vessel and a steward when it comes to, you've mentioned a couple times this idea of how do you create something so that that thing is out in the world and people are engaging with it, and maybe like don't need you to kind of keep forcing that thing, but it naturally just picks up and people are engaging with it themselves. Why is that important to you? Just when it comes to building communities, right? Like to be able to build things, put things out there in the world that, you know, help the people, but maybe the people don't have to be dependent on you in order to actually get what they really need.
Well, you think about, like, if you go through life and everything that you're touching requires you to continue to touch it, then when you're gone, what have you left?
Right. Because everything dies in theory if it can't operate without you.
So like to me, the real power in this life that we're all living is like creating power through other people and other moments that last beyond you.
Yeah.
You know, and not only that, I think real success is like when you leave your mark on somebody and then they go leave that same mark on somebody else, you know, and that becomes like generational impact. I mean, that is like, you know, really, really, really powerful.
How do you think about having kids, right? How do you think about that, right? Like, you have 2 kids that fortunately they see, you know, their parents like in the world doing their own thing, running businesses, like working with the community. You know, what you know, did you have that same type of vantage points as a child, you know, you and your wife, or like, is that new? And then B, what do you think that they're kind of gaining by being in an environment like that, where, you know, the real North Star is how do we create a Tulsa that, you know, when our kids are born into this environment, they have access to basically creating the life that they want. So yeah, like, did you grow up in that type of environment? And then, you know, what do you think your kids' perspective? I know they're young, but are growing up in this type of environment.
Yeah, our kids, you know, they know we own businesses. They mainly because they've got to like do their screens in the closet while we work sometimes. But that's pretty much it. Yeah, I don't think they understand. Like, you know, when I worked at Reading Partners, that was a pretty easy model to describe to them. You know, like, I don't know if they fully get the whole Tulsa remote thing yet, but maybe someday. I mean, I hope that what you're describing is showing up in just who we are as human beings. And I hope that they feel that every day, just in the way that we love them and love others. But who knows, you know, who knows? I think that a lot of that is just in, you know, some of the conversations we have with them, the way that they're raised, just like any parent, you know, and having those meaningful conversations and doing your part to raise a human being. So I don't know. I hope that someday it might ring true, but it's certainly for me, I'm a pastor's kid.
Okay.
So
PK,
yeah, and there's 2 types of pastors' kids. You know, there's the ones that break all the rules and don't get caught, and then there's the ones that break the rules and get caught. I was the first one, so you know, I was breaking the rules, but was pretty good at hiding it. So yeah, it was a good life growing up, and you know, just came from a ton of. You know, incredible access and opportunity, and you know, looking back, obviously not knowing at the time, but just was incredibly privileged in the way that we grew up and the access that we had. But my parents were always big on service. Were always big on acknowledging, you know, what we had and acknowledging the fact that not everybody had it. And I think that did make a big difference. You know, we didn't talk much about like race or class or anything like that growing up, but you always knew that it was like this world was bigger than us. You know, like it was our part and our duty to give back and make an impact on somebody else. And that's something that was certainly instilled at an early age.
And what have you learned in your experience with Tulsa Remote, even when it comes to, you know, when you're doing work in a city like Tulsa, you know what I'm saying? Like, there is a level of, let's say, education or consciousness or awareness that it requires to understand how to navigate this city, to make sure that it's a safe space, from the way that we communicate with people, the way that we build programs. It's a way that culturally we all feel like we have access, demographically we all feel like we have access, and it's equitable. How do you I guess, what advice would you have for people when it comes to, hey, I'm trying to create a business, I'm trying to kind of put something out in the world, or I'm trying to be this connector, you know, because you have to be able to connect with everyone, right?
That's
you have
right.
to be able to talk to everybody. You have to be able to empathize with people's experiences, even if maybe you've never dealt with that. Like, what level of advice would you have, you know, when it comes to navigating people, right? Even if maybe you have different experiences with those people.
Yeah. I think Tulsa is incredibly unique in the sense that there are ample resources here to take advantage of. And I think it's our duty to ensure that everybody within the city knows about the resources that are accessible.
Access to information.
Yes, because, you know, I think that we have an incredible thing going. And nobody wants to create this bubble where all these opportunities we're creating are only being accessed by these people that have the access, right? The information. And so I think it's our job to tell that story, scream it from the rooftops, every single rooftop across the city, and ensure that everyone who needs that support has access to it, and that the momentum that we're creating and the people we're bringing in are not the only people that are benefiting from
Right.
the resources that are being put behind
Yeah.
that talent and the
Yeah.
folks that are coming here. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, and ideally,
honestly.
even if with the model of what you said, it's like, but if it happens for people at that first level and they then become a catalyst to actually bring that out into the community and like then bring others in, then that's an actual flywheel model that can work, that can build a inclusive, equitable
Yes.
economy that's driving upward.
Yeah, and we just did this incredible Tulsa Idea Challenge a couple
Yeah,
weekends
that
ago.
was awesome.
1,300 applications, nice, and we had 250. I think it was 290 people showed up on day one.
Yep.
280 people finished it, and the spirit behind that is exactly what we were just talking about. Like,
Yep.
how do you pair up people? And man, it was inspirational to
Yep.
see, an older black woman from North Tulsa working with like a 20-something from South Tulsa. And solving a problem that they both experience in their day-to-day life. An unhoused person in a pairing with somebody else that is trying to solve, problems that they are experiencing in their everyday life. Actually showing up at this place, getting paid $300 and solving problems. And then it's like, what do you do then? 2 days finish. How do you continue the momentum? How do we invest in everybody that's got those ideas to make Tulsa a better place? And I think one of the incredible things about Tulsa is as we experience broken systems across this entire country and world, you can often feel paralyzed and hopeless. But I do feel like Tulsa is on the verge of being a place where people can contribute to the thing they feel hopeless about in meaningful ways and bring that idea into the light in a way that also has resources behind it. And that feels good. Even if every day you're experiencing that broken system, being a part of that solution is important for people's physical and mental well-being. Yep. And knowing that there's energy behind the things that you're experiencing to get it on the right track is powerful in itself.
That was very powerful. And how do you, as someone who's very passionate, like you have a very passionate energy, how do you choose and discern where it is that you put that passion, or that you're saying like, hey, you could do anything, you could build communities anywhere, you can, how do you kind of, what is your thing that kind of helps you navigate and discern and saying, hey, you know what, like, I'm gonna go over there and really try to catalyze that, or today I'm gonna go over there and catalyze that because that's the need that I see. What kind of is your kind of director gauging when it comes to, all right, this is where I want to put in my passion?
Yeah, to me, it's ensuring that. So I think there's two ways I'd address that. One is like in the workplace, and then one is in my personal life. Like in my personal life, it's all about values. If I believe in an organization or a human being or whatever, like I'm going to give of my time and passion or energy and money. And the workplace, for me, it's all about mission alignment. Like, is whatever I'm going to give my time to creating a better Tulsa, tomorrow? Is it aligning our values organizationally to create a vibrant and inclusive place to live for myself, but also for all the people that were moving here? One of the interesting parts about this job is we are essentially promising this incredibly aspirational Tulsa for folks. So there's like this tremendous pressure of like, you come here,
sure people have good experience.
You're going to be a part of this incredible thing. And so there's also part of it that's like ensuring the time that I'm spending is in an effort to create that incredible thing that we're promising for people that are moving here. And everybody has a different definition of incredible, but if we can market what our program is going to offer and what the city offers in a way that's attainable, that also aligns with how I'm spending my time and how our team is spending their time, that's the least we can do. Yeah. And so for me, it's just showing up in spaces, supporting organizations, supporting, awesome people like yourself in the work that you're doing, to create that Tulsa that we're promising everybody tomorrow.
I love that. So Justin, if you had one message to give to every human, what would you say?
I would say, make your life bigger than your work. Make your life bigger than your work. You've got limited time. Your work should be incredibly important, and you should be driven by what you're doing every day, and you should wake up excited for what you're going to do. But your quality of life and the way you're spending your time on the whole should be much bigger than how you identify yourself on a business card. And for me, that has always been the through line. How am I giving my time and energy in a way that's going to make this place better, regardless of the way that I, describe myself on LinkedIn. So,
Yeah.
that's what I say to everybody.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it. Appreciate the invite. Appreciate you.